Welcome to the Builders of Authority podcast, a show committed to helping you build authority for your brand. In the realm of business and personal branding, authority stands as a cornerstone. Authority isn't built overnight, it's built over time. So join us as we build something remarkable together. And now, here's your host, Adam McChesney.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Builders of Authority podcast. We're live here at Adventure Unknown, bringing you a very special episode here today. As all of you know, our podcast is brought to you by Punchline Productions. They are the production company behind this show and really make this all possible. I get to show up. The last guest was just like, there's so much awesome equipment here. I love this setup. I was like, yeah, luckily I don't have to worry about any of it. Sam takes care of literally all of that. Today, I'm joined by Jamie Thurber, who is the CEO of Punchline Productions and someone I've gotten the chance to get to know better over the last couple of months. Seen a lot of her content online. We'll dive into that story. We were just talking about before this, how many common people that we know, even though we've only known each other for a couple months. She's got an incredible story and so much to share with all of you today, even outside of what she's involved with on the Punchline side of things, and we can't wait to dive into that. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was a good introduction.
I always tell people, I said, the last guest was like, hey, I listened to your first, he had listened to a bunch of episodes, which I thought was really cool. He's like, I listened to your first episode. And then he's like, man, I was wondering what you were going to write for my introduction. Because he's like, I listened to one of your episodes. He's like, you do a good job at just making sure that there's like flow to the front of them. Like, yeah, because if they start listening to the episode, they might just not listen after that.
Sure. Right.
So I try my best.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, I know you from the Punchline side of things, but talk to us a little bit about who Jamie is, what she's been involved with, all that good.
Okay, yeah. It's been a journey, to say the least. So I started off in but running businesses when I was 17. It was kind of like I don't know what to do with all this. Can you help me figure it out? And I was like, sure, I guess. And so that was a landscaping construction company. And then I decided, I'm going to go to school for small business management. And then I've used it every year since. So I worked in different companies as a young adult and was typically the youngest person in the room because I went to school at night, to college at night. And then I was in the automotive industry for a long time. And in that, I started in a front office management position and worked myself to be the operations manager over multiple locations with them. And they grew a ton while I was there. And we did event planning. And basically, what was funny was my boss never wanted to spend money on certain, most things. So he would have me take every meeting of people who are coming in to sell marketing or sell whatever it was. And then after the meeting, I'd sit down and figure out how to do that thing. How do I make a newsletter? I don't know how to make a newsletter. And back then there weren't tools. I was doing it all in a Word doc with text boxes, And so because of that, I've been able to figure things like that out. And I think it's been almost 12 years, I left there and was like, how can I use this to build my own thing? And so I went down the path of finding out how to reach other business owners online and how could I use that skill set? So I started out with mainly what I referred to as project management at the time, but was really helping them manage their businesses virtually. And along that process, I found that the owners were typically spending more time talking to me about their lives and about how they felt their struggles or their communication issues with a team member or their own productivity and things like that. And alongside that, I've been doing all my own growth and learning too. And so what I realized was I really like those conversations a lot. So it switched more to a coaching perspective. And then doing the management side of things was more of only on very specific situations because it takes over your life.
Yes.
Which is how I wound up here at Punchline, actually. Was because I came in to help and consult. And when you have that skill set, which I think you can relate because we have similar skill sets, you end up, if you guys are okay with this, I'm going to do all the things that I can do for you. And then we all just kind of looked at each other one day and I was like, I think you guys aren't going to get rid of me. I'd be able to get rid of me. I've put my fingers in all this stuff if you're okay with it. And you have a skill set that we don't. And I'm like, okay, great. So it worked out. And now I'm helping them here with all the operations and management of the back end of things, but then also the client communication stuff and making sure people like you have what you need when you're supposed to. And that the team is not angry and, they're not too rushed. And while still helping my clients and coaching. So with that, I've had the same clients for, I think my shortest one right now is 2 years. Yeah, my longest is 8 years.
Yeah.
So they keep growing, and they're like, why would I want to re-teach someone myself and my business if you're willing to stay here and do this with me? I'm like, yeah, I'd absolutely love to. So I've watched them grow from ideas to huge pieces of business, or from smaller business to big business, or, you know, whatever their goals have been. So the journey's been very rewarding. Lots of never a dull moment.
Oh, yeah.
That's for sure.
Especially when you're working with so many different businesses. It's like, hey, it's like if you're just running one business, like you have clients that, you know, you're providing them a service of podcasting or whatever, but it's like when you're also coaching them and doing project management inside their businesses, you kind of have like 10 babies that are all businesses.
Yeah. I wrote a post one time, I remember. So I used to be a big blogger. They're all still up.
Yeah,
you know, they're still there. But one was about how your business isn't my baby, but it's like my niece.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm,
you know, I'm not worrying about, I mean, I'm worrying about it probably more than I should, but I'm thinking about it as though I do. At the time, I didn't have a nephew either. I just had my niece. And so I'm like I do worry about Zoe.
Yeah.
I worry about your child.
Yeah.
You know, your business that way too. And so with that, I mean, it's been really rewarding. And I built all of that through sharing content.
That's awesome. One of the things that I want to touch back on that you said, and this is where I think a lot of people, right, they're like, hey, I want to own my own business, and maybe it just doesn't make sense for them right now. So many people are like, I want to go own a different business. So you're talking about being in automotive for 12 years and then going and doing something else. You learned basically how to run a business and or be the right hand to the owner because they didn't want to deal with those things. And then you went and learned all those other skill sets that are all transferable to other stuff. I think so many people get it wrong where they're so frustrated of being in a job that they are like, I just can't wait until I can go start my own company. They miss out on the massive opportunity to basically get paid to learn skills that eventually will then go make them a bunch of money starting whatever business that they want. So talk to me a little bit about kind of how you found out that mindset early on to say, hey, I'm learning this skill set and I'm getting paid to do it, which is better than trying to go and make it on my own right now. And now look how far you came.
Yeah. Well, so I think at first it was frustrating for sure, because I would think this cheapskate, like just hire the guy who knows how to do this.
Yeah.
And then there was the moments where it was rewarding when I figured it out. And I realized how much value that brought. You know, there were conversations or times where I thought, man, if I left this place, he's going to have to hire multiple people to replace me, which is what happened.
It always does.
And so, you know, with realizing that, I thought two things. While I was doing that, I was never like, oh, I'm learning all of this because I'm going to go do my own thing.
Sure.
I'm learning all of this because I see the growth potential in this company. And as long as I am giving this large amount of value here, there's no reason why I wouldn't go with them as it grows, unless I chose not to,
Sure.
right? Which is really what happened. We made a mutual decision that we were just no longer really on the same page ethically. And that just was a fact. And so with that, then I sat and I had my moment, don't worry, of like, oh God, what in the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
And also being a woman in a male dominated industry, you usually, unfortunately, start at a lower position and work your way up. So people trust you and see what you've done. So even people who had watched what I had done weren't willing to put me in those positions.
Yeah.
Which is what I needed to pay my bills.
Yeah.
Right. So that's when I really did. I was like on Pinterest going, how do I take management skills and help people online? But during that mindset shift, I'd say it was thinking about everything. I think when we're doing it every single day, we don't think about the value of all of the various things that we're able to manage and handle every single day. And if you are to look at those things as skill sets, because stuff that I'm really good at, like you mentioned, Sam's not really good at, things that Sam's like second nature, I have no idea how to do.
Yeah.
So we can think more about our unique skill sets as value points.
Yeah.
That's how you can start to look at it, as how you can take it into your own lane, I think.
Yeah, I mean, creating leverage and knowing that you have leverage, and then knowing your weaknesses and how to surround yourself with the people that are more effective at what those weaknesses are. I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, and or they go and luckily, I mean, for that guy that you were working for, luckily back then had somebody like you where like, hey, I'm going to take this and I'm going to run with it and go do it. But a lot of times you're like, that's a unicorn, right? And most people are like, hey, when Jamie leaves, we're going to need 3 or 4 people to go do all this stuff. Or you just don't have someone with the mindset that says, hey, I'm going to go take this and go run with it. And that's where most business owners struggle, because they're like, wow, I don't want to do all of this stuff, but I'm over leveraged over here and I don't have enough skill sets or assets or employees to be able to go take it. And that's probably what you go into when you're talking and coaching people, I assume, as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing I've noticed the most that's a shift I can help people with is to look at hiring very differently than we're all taught to look at hiring.
Yeah.
To think, and even here at, with Punchline thinking, I talked to Corey about this a lot, because to him, he wanted everybody in the room. And I was like, they don't need to be here. Yeah. That's not necessary. I've never met the woman who's edited my podcast for years. Like, she never met her in real life. Yeah. I have an assistant that worked for me for 9 years that I met one time in person. Yep. And it's because I just happened to be in the same city as her at the same time one time. We had coffee. Yep. But she knows my social security number, so
wow.
That's the difference I try to show people. And I remember she's a super high performer, one of my newer clients, she's been with me for 2 years, but she came in to me saying, people wanted me to hire someone like you because I'm not good at delegating, and I had an assistant and it didn't work, and I don't know what to do about that. So what I did, instead of saying, oh, well, let me help you find out how to hire the perfect assistant that has that she has a very unique skill set. So this person would have to have a very unique skill set too. Was I started asking questions about what are the things that felt the most stressful in your life. And it was things like errands, dinners, lunches, grocery shopping, things like that. So what we did was we found out how to fill those voids. Instead of having somebody clean the house once a month, she increased that. She started ordering meals. She started on a subscription thing. We took a different avenue to it. But then there's other areas where if you're able to, I think outside the box when it comes to how you can find help. Yeah. That is a big deal too, because it doesn't have to be a 40-hour-a-week person who sits next to you in an office.
Yes.
There's so many other options. And so if you're able to look at it, I think I offer people the perspective of take a step back and kind of look at what really would be the most helpful for you first and start there, because it doesn't have to be a whole full-time position.
And I think a lot of times, and I've been guilty of this in the past, but I know a lot of people will hire for the wrong positions because they're not either aware or vulnerable enough to say, hey, I'm struggling with these things. So you're like the CEO of whatever, a marketing agency or a roofing company, and you're like, I actually hate doing the roofing stuff. Yeah. I hate doing all this stuff, but I was told by somebody else that I need an executive assistant or an office manager, but I'm actually hiring them even though I really like to do those things.
Yeah.
Or you're like, hey, it's actually more on the personal side. And when people aren't vulnerable enough to go do that, you make the wrong hire and then wonder why it's not working. It's because you still want to go do that thing, or you have an underperforming, this is my favorite thing that I've screwed up in the past. You have an underperforming employee and you're like, I don't want to let them go because they've been with me for so long and they've done so much. So I'm going to hire somebody else to make it even more confusing that can do their job, And it's, I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, it's super common because we do feel bad, right? We love these people, and a lot of times they become family, especially in small business, and it is hard. I think that I have a guy, Will, actually specifically, where when he started, he wants to turn wrenches. He does not want to do the paperwork. He hates it. So there's 2 things that we work on, or we've worked on this whole time. I'm like, I need you to understand how to do the invoicing and answer the phone and do the quote and order the part. I need you to understand that piece just in case somebody doesn't show up that day or quits tomorrow. But we can make this business to where you're still turning wrenches and you still have a bay because that's what you want to do. There's no reason not to. I think that there's a really, I love the internet and I hate it all at the same time, because there becomes this only this way box that people think. And so there's a lot of these forums, right? A lot of the auto world, they talk to other owners and stuff on forums, and they have forever. And in that, they'll say, well, you can't be an owner-operator. You're never going to make any more money. And I'm like, says who? You just have to look at it in a different way, in my opinion. And I think that's a big piece of the puzzle is, like you said, being aware and knowing that it's okay. That doesn't make you less of an owner. Yeah. Doesn't make you, if anything, it makes you a better value because you understand how to pull into your own strengths, which is the most important piece. Like when people let ego or fear of being vulnerable stop them from playing into their own strengths, then all we do is hurt ourselves, cost ourselves more money. That's how people lose businesses.
Yeah.
Really.
100%. And I think like it hit me about 2 years in. So we opened up our auto glass company in 2021, and it hit me 2 years in is like, I've never, and I still to this day have never repaired or replaced auto glass. My uncle, who now co-owns the company with me, never done it as well.
Yeah.
His girlfriend that runs the Mayday of the company, never done it either. And it's like in those businesses where you don't build it around the owner, you build it around processes and systems and the other people that you need to do. It's like, those are actually the ones that run way better when the owner, whether it's ego or just like comfortability. I know even the marketing agency, I'm like, I'll just go do this because I would have to send an email and then go send a Loom video. It's easier for me to just go do it. And then the same thing pops up 2 weeks later. It's like, it's almost easier to go scale something that you don't enjoy and or know how to do a lot because you don't get in the way as the bottleneck.
Yeah, that's true. That's really true. So that's the thing that people ask me, I remember when I first started, everybody wanted me to niche down to just one kind of company.
Yeah.
Only work with the automotive because you have that history.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to help. What I find is my clients all have their common denominator is the way they want their lives to be. And typically also that they're overworkers. That is, and which I am that person. So I understand. So that's how we relate. And I want them to create the lifestyles that they want. That's their common denominator. And people will ask me, how do you help various companies? Like I have everything from a commercial project manager to automotive repair to hair salons. And I said, I understand how business functions.
Yeah.
I don't need to know how to cut that hair and turn that. I do, unfortunately, know way more about turning wrenches than I ever wanted to know. I grew up a car girl with my dad, so I knew enough about things, but I don't need to know exactly what part goes on that truck.
Yeah.
What I need to know is how to make that work, how to profit on it, how to make sure that part doesn't get lost in translation, because that's a big deal. So when you're an owner, that is a really great way to think about it. I think that so when Tony bought a glass company, so my fiance has a glass company, when he did that, it was about 15 years ago now, but he looked at it as, this is something people always need.
Yes. Yeah.
Like he does now. We eat, sleep, and breathe glass, and he does do installations, but he never learned, he does trucks. He never learned passenger vehicles because he's like, I don't want to know how to do that.
Yeah.
But he did that because he thought, I don't need to know how to do it. I know how to run a company.
Yeah.
I'll learn what's necessary to serve my clients best and find his own niche, which he did. And because of that, though, it's very, very successsul.
Yes.
Because he doesn't really have an emotional connection with whether or not that glass is perfect, you know, and it's more about the customer care for him and that kind of deal. And so I do think that there's an interesting piece there where you can have passion as a business owner without being the person who's actually doing, like you said, you've never put in the auto glass. You don't have to do that to not have passion for that business being successful.
Well, I always tell people it's like business is business 80% of the time. The 20% is the auto glass versus podcast production versus marketing agency versus HVAC. So most people fail in the 80%, not the 20%.
Yeah.
They don't know how to market. They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to, take care of their finances, all of those different things. But those are the 80% that you can take and transferably go to another industry and be effective and or consult on. And it's the things that people are like, hey, but I just want to go stay in this corner over here. And that's where people ultimately struggle and fail.
Absolutely. I think that the 80% part is scariest for people.
Yeah.
Because it does involve things like paychecks and loans and taxes and things like that. When what I think what I do personally that works is I take my personality traits and things that matter to me. Like I enjoy being someone people can count on. That's been a personality trait for me forever.
Yep.
The follow through is really important to me and integrity is very important to me. And when I talk to people about this and QuickBooks, they're like, I don't understand how that meshes. I'm like, I don't understand how you don't. Yeah. Because to me, it matters that if I tell you I'm going to pay you on the 15th, I pay you on the 15th. Yeah. Or if some catastrophic thing happens that I can't, I'm letting you know. Yeah. And so I take those things that matter to me as like core values as a person and I implement them in that 80% part of the business structure stuff. Because what that does is then lets me to show up in a way that feels good to me. And so it's connected. in a way that I don't ignore those things that nobody wants to look at their money all the time. That's one of the, I'm sure you have this conversation. So many people don't know how much money's going out, how much money's coming in. They have no idea.
No, absolutely not.
I'm like, man, you can't run a company that way.
Mm-hmm.
You sure can't make a profit that way.
Yeah.
And so when you can connect things that attach to things that matter to you, it's more likely that you're actually going to pay attention and do those pieces and they don't feel so daunting.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to transition conversation a little bit to kind of talk about branding, obviously, like the podcasting stuff, things like that. So we talked a lot about like the business function on like, hey, before you have all the marketing and sales and stuff, like if you have a bad product, if you can't serve people, if you can't take care of customers, obviously it doesn't matter how much you have from a marketing standpoint or how good you are at closing sales. But once you have that foundation and some of the strategies, I know you obviously have your own podcast, you're involved in Punchline Productions, you've seen other companies do marketing and sales. What are some of the lessons you've learned along the way about maybe things that have worked and things that haven't worked holistically when it comes to building authority?
Yeah. I think, well, number one is consistency for sure. And being willing to know that your audience is different than anybody else's audience. That's one of the things I've noticed. Because with the podcasts too, every one of the shows, their audience responds to something different.
Yeah.
So I try to tell the hosts and the editors, actually, we have to be willing to adjust accordingly as we're paying attention to what's really hitting with that particular audience. And it took me a while to learn that at the beginning. I know very specifically who on Facebook responds to my content. Instagram, it's changed a lot for me over the years, right? So I think that when we're able to again, kind of take a moment and realize that everything that works for Adam's not going to work for Jamie and vice versa all the time, and know that I think it's really fun when people come in and they want to sponsor a podcast and they ask what the ROI is. And I think it's interesting to me because very little marketing has any kind of specific ROI. Like, no, there's no promise. It's kind of all a risk, right? And so I tell people that, they're like, well, what do you mean? But what the biggest thing is to think, what's the feeling you're trying to get across to somebody? Who are you trying to reach? And everybody's different. So for me, with my own coaching company, it's always been, I want to be someone who offers a different perspective to people and offers them an example of the fact that they're not alone and that they can do life different. That's the base. Now you can look at and see like thousands of videos and posts of me talking about that basic. And that's the baseline of almost every conversation. But if you don't look at it like that, you'll never see that parallel. So I think if we get really clear for as far as like authority comes from a place of clarity, right? And so if you know what you're trying to put out there, then other people will be aware of it too. I was just telling some young hairstylists the other day, it doesn't matter if you offer that service if nobody knows about it. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, people don't know that you offer braiding. They don't know that you offer this or whatever it was. And so when you can add those things into the authority piece, I always love the jab, right hook deal. So Gary Vee was like my guy at the very beginning. I'm like, I need to read every word you say. And it's great because he's correct. And so I tell people all the time, if you add value, people remember that. And if you're adding it in a consistency space, they're going to remember that. And so when you do offer something that's a dollar amount or a service, they're more likely to actually read what you're saying. Or when you're in a room that they're in a room that you're not in, and your name's going to come up based off of that value of consistency you're giving. So I think that looking at it more like that than looking at it like sales marketing is truly the difference, I think, in what works in most cases. Unless you're only selling like this cup and this is your only desired thing is to sell this cup. But even now, as you see, these cups are being sold by influencers, you know, by showing that. I mean, I did it on my podcast the other day, that you can close it and hold it upside down. It doesn't leak. So you can have hands full of things and you're not leaking water all over yourself. But that's being shown by somebody's life, you know? And so I think if we can lean into that part, it offers a level of authority that I think other people always, the old way of thinking was that we had to like command that and be this perfect structured, whatever.
Yeah.
When that's not really it at all. People see through that a lot.
Well, the authenticity piece, especially with AI and the social media influencer and guru world of things, like that's obviously a factor that the more authentic and transparent and trustworthy you can be.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from consistency. It comes from experience. It comes from other people sharing and referring you and doing all that stuff. But I always like to say is like, hey, there's going to be immediate things you can do, and then there's going to be longer things that you can do. You have to do both of them. Yeah. And so some of those things you're going to have to pay for them. Other things you can go and they're free and easy to go do, but you can't have all of your eggs in just one basket, because like you talk about the radio shows, like if you're sponsoring a radio show and you have a higher ticket product, well, you have to obviously know that people aren't just like, for the most part, listening to this podcast and saying, oh, I really hope X, Y, and Z widget's going to be talked about and there's a sale going on and doing that. They're going to listen to that podcast over and over and over again. And you may have not even thought about buying that thing, but now you're like, oh, I've heard it so much. Now I'm ready to buy. Whereas you go and you do something else and you go to the store and you see something there, or you go type something in on Google and it's like you had the intent in your mind to go buy that thing. Consumers buy so differently today, and everybody is at a different point in their buying journey. You used to be able to say, hey, I'm just going to do radio, or I'm just going to do TV, or I'm just going to go do that thing. And that was enough. Now it's like, I got to figure out how to do short-term, long-term, paid, organic. And so how has that kind of changed from what you've seen from businesses over the years?
Oh, man. So while you were saying that, I was thinking about the comment I just made about pairing your core values with pieces of like that 80% business stuff, where I feel like too, if you bring those into your marketing and into your content, it makes it easier, but it also attaches that to it too, right? So then it's part of kind of who you are. So you're not making anything up. Yeah. You know, that's the other part. And when you start looking at content that way, it's everywhere all the time, you know? So I think the thing that's changed a lot is again, looking at what you can do consistently. I think some people try to do everything at once. I try to tell people to pick a couple of things and then we kind of scale up to doing more.
Yep.
If you can't do paid ads right now, that's okay. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to make sure we put stories out all the time. We're going to make sure we interact on other posts genuinely.
Yep.
We're going to make sure we're sharing content that someone else is making that we feel good about too. So it's not just us. Like that actual social part of social media is so important, and people don't realize that. So if you can't pay right now, you can spend more time and intention in working in that way. And that's kind of how I'll have people tier up based on what's going on or what they're capable of doing. But the other thing I've always done that I feel like has stayed steady is repurposing content in more than one place. A lot of people think they wrote this post and everyone saw it, so they can never talk about it again.
Or I can't take it to Instagram and on Facebook. It's like, no, you should.
Yeah, you totally should. And you can post it again and you can put a different picture, or you can talk about that same topic once a month, once a week, because it's going to hit different every single time.
Yep.
I like to also remind people we have to think about the way our world is right now and how everybody's so fast paced, right? The short-term attention spans.
Yep.
So if you're making short form content and it grabs their attention, like example, you write your short blurbs on Facebook, right? And you do that very consistently. So people see that and it's easy to consume.
Yep.
And it's valuable. So when you do write something long, they're going to stop and read it.
Yep.
Because it's not a waste of their time.
Yep.
And that's the difference, right? That's the key. They think about it that way. And so when we're playing this game, I think it's when you talk about long game, it's thinking of how do I make sure that when I give more of say we're trying to sell a ticket to something, you know, on one of those longer posts, it's those small blips of value that's going to make somebody read that and then say, you know what, I trust, and they don't even know they're doing this typically. Their mind is like, oh, I trust Adam, so I'm totally going to buy this.
Yeah.
And so I feel like when we look at it as a relationship kind of, not kind of really, it's a relationship that helps us know too what our people need and want. And if you have a service, like at the end of the day, sure, you're trying to sell it, but also you're trying to give it to people who need it. Put it in front of people who need it. So if you look at it as a relationship, then that helps you figure out how to get your glass in front of the right person or your program in front of the right person when they're in that moment going, oh my God, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I do. Here it is.
It's interesting to think about that. And then especially kind of like, I would love to get your take on this, how AI is transforming everything. Because a couple, like the podcast episode that we just had go out today was with a guy that lives over in Illinois. We just started doing his SEO. We're doing stuff with his website now as well. But he was showing me kind of his AI playbook. And so they run a radon mitigation and like air, I don't know, purificate, like some weird new thing that these companies are selling. And he's like, so we did, I can't remember, it was 7 figures plus last year. And into this year, they've already done over 7 figures. And he's like, he's a co-owner. His partner is the one that runs the day-to-day of the business. They have a part-time employee, and then they have AI that answers the phone, runs the website and the chat. So he's like, my whole thing has entirely changed because we used to have 10 employees. Now we have that.
So his whole overhead is just gone, whoop.
And he's like, we're making more money, profiting more money, doing more stuff with AI. So how do you see it already kind of getting into business, and where do you kind of see it going?
That's a great question. So as a content creator and someone who loves to write, I'm one of those people who likes the meme that says like, I don't want AI to write for me. I want to like do my laundry. Please just let me write. I still want to write. Can you like come to my house and wash my clothes? That'd be great. So I wasn't using it for a long time. And then doing the restructuring of the company here with Punchline and figuring out really clear roles and things like that is when I really started diving in a little bit more. But I had been watching the trends and watching what was going on in companies. And so I think there's a good balance to strike. And what I tell people is we can use reels as a really good example, actually. You can tell the difference between a reel that was made through AI and a reel that was made by a person.
Sure.
It hits different. So I can tell when someone's just using AI to find it. And I'm like, that's not what we want. That's personally not what we do for our shows. That's not what our hosts want. And they do perform better. And so that's a good example of, I think there's a balance because we do use AI to help write all the captions. Otherwise I'd be paying a ton more money for people to write captions. But because of that, there's a personal aspect involved still enough that it's not disconnecting. And so I think some companies, like what he's doing, what you described, he probably doesn't need to necessarily make that personal connection. So it makes a lot of sense that he doesn't need a person, eight or 10 people sitting there answering the phones, because people aren't taking an emotional connection to him. They just want him to come do their service and then that's it, know? But I feel like finding the difference and being able to recognize, again, kind of your audience, right? And your relationship with your customer. Is that connection, that personal connection necessary? Okay, if it is, how do we use both items in a way that allows us to save time and be better at this? Because, especially for SEO and AEO stuff, it's great for captions and things like that, because we are not robots. Our brains don't think that way. I'm sure it's definitely like shrunk the time for your team to be able to do those things and find keywords and stuff like that.
I always tell people is like, if you use it for the wrong reasons, you'll get the wrong results. So if you use it to try to write an entire 25-page website and 10 pages a month and just have that, but not take in the look and the feel of the client that you're working with and doing that. But if you use it for keyword research to then come up with the blog topics, to then figure out how to make sure that everything is connected on the website, and then you have a human go in and do it based off the conversations we've had with clients, that's effective. And so again, I think somebody's listening to somebody, can't remember what podcast or if it was a YouTube video a couple of weeks ago, they said we're going through it was something along the lines of we're going through a trust crisis, where it's like nobody trusts anybody because you don't know whether it's written with AI, even though it's like somebody reached out to me the other day. It's like, hey, that's so cool that every single time, he's like, that's so cool that I asked you to be a friend, and then a couple minutes later you had an AI or your virtual assistant do auto response. I'm like, no, that's just me. It's like, I've been doing it for 5 years, every single time doing this. And somebody said, hey, like, what did you have to input in order to write that post the other day into AI? I was like, that's me. And so it's crazy that you even have to think about that and ask those questions. But I think on the flip side, I think there's going to be a bubble that pops in the next 2 to 3 years where there is going to be some tremendous technology that goes out there that ends up working really, really well in certain industries. But it's because it's tried and true, it's adopted, and it doesn't affect the human emotion aspect of it. And then there's going to be this other bubble that pops where people spend so much time and money and create entire business models around this thing that it was like, hey, it was the shiny new object that eventually is just gonna implode.
Yeah. And we see that happen, right? We see that happen in the industries all the time. I think that people worry that AI is going to take their companies away. A lot of people that have online businesses worry about that. And I tell them, I'm like, if you don't stop doing the heartfelt things that you did to build your company, it's not. Yeah. Because there is a difference. And especially if you've established an audience, I haven't had anybody ask me if I'm writing things with AI. But I write a very specific way, I think. And so people who've been reading it know. But as I'm trying to cultivate, a different relationship with newer people, I do think about it. And I kind of make sure that, how it'll ask you if you want to take out the pauses and the ands. And I'm like, no, leave them in. Now, sometimes if I had a lot of words and I need to shrink it a little bit, I will. But I usually leave it in because I don't know this person and I don't want to sound like a robot to them. And so keeping that in mind, I think helps us if you keep that in mind, when that bubble pops, it's not going to break you. If anything, it's going to strengthen you.
100%. Yeah. Love it. Well, Jamie, this has been an awesome episode. I'm really glad we had the chance to do this and a lot of good conversation. Anything that we've talked about here today where you're like, hey, I want to add this as an additional layer to kind of leave the audience with as we finish up?
I love that. So I think that what's cool about your podcast is when people think of authority and they think of building authority, I think they can look at something like, you're really transparent about the size of your company and the growth of your company. So, but if somebody was to just look at it from the surface, they may not realize that what you're talking about on the show isn't just about somebody who has scaled this large company. It's about any layer. And so I hope that whoever watches this episode too understands that everything we've talked about fits whether you have an idea and you're just starting or you've been running a company for 15 years. These are all things that plug in really well at any layer of that. And I think a lot of your episodes are. And so that's what I hope people find for sure.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. Where can people stay connected with you? We'll put this in the show notes. But where can people stay connected with you online?
On Facebook, it's Jamie Thurber. And then on Instagram is jamie.thurber because there's another one of me somewhere. But then those are the two places I'm the most active. And then I do have a website, jamiethurber.com.
Awesome. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes. Again, Jamie, thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening or watching today's episode. If you're listening to this episode, make sure to leave us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. It definitely helps move the needle and get more eyeballs on this. If you're watching this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Like this video, leave a comment, share a little bit about what you learned on this episode, and share it on social media. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's podcast. Thank you, Jamie, for coming on. And remember, authority isn't built overnight. It's built over time.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. We sure do appreciate it. Until next time, friends.